I want you to close your eyes for a second and just picture a business, whatever first pops into your head.
Yeah, just the default image.
Right. And you almost certainly pictured a building, didn't you? Like a storefront with a sign out front, or maybe a corporate office park, a warehouse, or, I don't know, a sprawling parking lot.
Mm-hmm. It's totally automatic.
Yeah. But what if I told you that fundamental mental image, the way we visualize commerce for the last century, basically is completely expired?
It really is. I mean, the foundational math that built those buildings, it just no longer adds up.
Yeah.
We are living through this massive economic paradigm shift, and it is rendering the default assumptions of how to build and scale a company totally obsolete.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are taking a really hard look at the theories of Joseph Sack to understand the collapse of legacy business models.
Right.
And also this fascinating psychological trap he calls market hallucination, plus the rise of what he terms the digital cottage economy. Yeah.
Exactly. And we aren't just going to look at what is changing, right? Because, I mean, you can see the empty office buildings and the shifting job market with your own eyes.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
We need to drill into exactly why the old math is dead, how the underlying mechanisms actually work, and how this directly impacts your own career and your own leverage.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if the building itself is an expired concept, we have to look back and figure out why it was the default in the first place.
Right.
If we rewind to the industrial era, reaching a customer required a massive, heavy, physical footprint.
Precisely. It required freight, fuel, supply lines.
Localized warehouses.
Yes. Just enormous overhead, simply to move a physical product from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And because of that incredible physical friction, the entire global economy was basically built on a foundation of scarcity.
Scarcity of reach, scarcity of access, and fundamentally scarcity of who was actually allowed to participate.
Yeah. And Joseph Sack points out that while some of this scarcity was just a natural byproduct of geography, a significant portion of it was engineered.
Like on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The friction of the physical world allowed companies to create what he calls a toll booth model.
A toll booth model. Okay, that makes sense, but I want to make sure we're visualizing this correctly. It's kind of like, it's like a mandatory cover charge at a club where the bouncer doesn't even play the music, right? They just own the door.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Or like having to pay a delivery driver $50 to bring you a $5 pizza simply because they are the only person in town who owns a car.
Exactly. The driver didn't make the pizza. They didn't make it taste better. They just owned the friction of getting it to your house.
Right.
And that is a brilliant way to frame it, because the focus of the legacy corporation was often less about improving the pizza and more about monopolizing the roads.
Monopolizing the roads.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Gatekeepers positioned themselves between the creator of the value and the customer who wanted it. And they made absolutely sure there was no other route you could take. You just had to pay the toll.
But let me stop you there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Are we being a little too harsh on these legacy institutions? Like, was all that overhead, the buildings, the distribution networks, the giant corporate apparatus, was it ever really adding value to the consumer, or are we saying it was purely just an extracted cost of permission from day one?
No, that is a very fair pushback. I mean, the infrastructure was absolutely necessary once upon a time.
Right, because things were physical.
You literally could not ship a physical widget or even a piece of information across the country without trains and printing presses and warehouses. What's fascinating here is not that the toll booth existed, but how the gatekeepers held onto that structure long after its utility began to wane.
Just to keep extracting their cut.
Exactly. So it transitioned from a necessary utility into a rent-seeking operation. Over decades, people accepted this bloated toll booth as the natural, unquestionable order of business.
They just got used to it.
Yeah, they conflated the exorbitant cost of distribution with the actual inherent value of the product itself. The overhead wasn't the product, but you couldn't get the product without funding the overhead.
Okay, so if that toll booth model really defined the 20th century, why aren't we still trapped in it? What actually bypassed the road?
Well, Sack points to a two-punch knockout. Two sequential massive technological shifts.
Okay.
And punch number one was the cloud.
Now, I understand the cloud generally, but how exactly did it kill the toll booth?
The cloud was the first fatal blow because it entirely removed geography from the economic equation.
Geography.
Yeah, in the toll booth era, geography was a tax. If a legacy retail bank wanted 1,000 new customers in a different state, they had to lease real estate, build a new branch, hire local managers.
Right, the cost of expansion was linear. If you want to sell twice as much, you have to spend almost twice as much to expand your footprint.
Exactly. But with the cloud, you can ship software without a boat. Let's look at the math of a legacy brick-and-mortar bakery versus a modern software as a service or SaaS company.
Okay, I love a bakery example.
Right. So for the bakery, the 10,000th muffin they sell costs them flour, butter, labor, and display space. The cost of goods sold never goes away.
Right, it's physical.
But for a SaaS company hosted in the cloud, serving the 10,000th user costs fractions of a cent in server compute.
Wow. The cost of replication basically drops to zero.
It drops so close to zero, it becomes a rounding error. You deploy your code once, and suddenly your reach isn't capped by your zip code.
You can serve a customer right down your street and another customer in Tokyo at the exact same cost.
With the exact same speed. The cloud evaporated the physical road, which means the gatekeepers couldn't charge a toll on it anymore.
Okay, I track that. The cloud killed geography. But the cloud has been around for a while now, and we still have massive corporate buildings full of thousands of employees. So what was punch number 2?
Punch number 2, remove the labor limit. And that punch is artificial intelligence.
AI.
Of course. Yeah. For a long time, even with the cloud-making distribution essentially free, if you wanted to grow your software company or your digital agency, the answer was always the same.
Add headcount.
Exactly. Add headcount. You needed more developers, more customer service reps, more middle managers to oversee the reps.
You had to scale human complexity to scale revenue.
Spot on.
Yeah.
You had to add whole departments and basically pray that your revenue caught up before your payroll burn rate killed the company.
Oh, man, yeah.
But SAC argues that AI has fundamentally severed the link between headcount and output. He introduces the concept of the augmented operator.
The augmented operator, what does that mean?
This is a single individual armed with a laptop, an internet connection, and a sophisticated stack of AI tools who can produce the output of an entire legacy department.
Can we make this super concrete for the listener? Like, walk me through what an augmented operator actually looks like in practice. How does one person actually replace a department?
Sure. Let's look at a marketing campaign. Under the legacy model, if a client wants a new digital ad campaign, the agency puts an account executive on a call to get the requirements.
Got it.
The executive drafts a brief and hands it to a creative director. The director assigns a copywriter to draft the text and a graphic designer to create the visuals.
There's like 4 people already.
Exactly. Then a media buyer takes those assets and spends 3 days manually setting up A/B tests across various social platforms.
I've lived through those exact email chains. It's a massive coordination effort.
It takes 2 weeks, 5 specialists, and it costs $30,000.
Right. Standard agency model.
Now look at the augmented operator. This is one person. They take the client call and feed the transcript directly into a large language model.
Okay.
The model instantly outputs a strategic brief and generates 50 variations of ad copy. The operator feeds the best concepts into an AI image or video generator, producing broadcast-quality visuals in minutes.
That is insane.
Then, using API integrations, they push all 50 variants directly to the ad networks, where an algorithmic agent automatically shifts the budget to whichever ad is performing best in real time.
Wow. So what took 5 people 2 weeks?
It takes one person 45 minutes, and their only overhead is a few $100s in software subscriptions.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
They don't need a project manager because there's no team to manage. They don't need an office because they aren't collaborating physically. The entire friction of human coordination is just, it's gone.
But wait, I have to push back here. Doesn't this just sound like a fancy academic way of justifying mass layoffs? I mean, if an AI stack allows one person to do the work of 5 people, that means 4 people are suddenly out of a job. That doesn't feel empowering. It sounds like an absolute crisis for the workforce. Does this mean the institution itself is obsolete, or just the humans inside it?
This raises a really important question, and it's the exact anxiety everyone feels when they look at this math. But SAC makes a critical distinction here.
Which is?
It's not about robots replacing factory workers. It is a crisis for the legacy institution, but it is a massive liberation for the individual human whose output is multiplied.
How so? If the copywriter loses their agency job, they're still unemployed, right?
Historically, why did that copywriter need the agency in the first place? Because the institution was the multiplier.
Ah, I see.
You joined a massive company because they had the client roster, the distribution network, the legal team, the capital. They multiplied the value of your isolated skill. And in exchange for providing that multiplication, the institution took the lion's share of the profit.
They own the toll booth, so they took the toll.
Precisely.
Mm.
But now, AI is the multiplier. The institution's massive infrastructure has been replaced by a $20 a month tool stack. Because AI provides the multiplication, the individual human, that copywriter who just lost their agency job, can now become the augmented operator themselves. They get to keep the entirety of the cut, rather than trading 80% of it away for the privilege of sitting in a cubicle.
Okay, so if AI killed the labor limit and the cloud killed geography, shouldn't we be seeing total economic anarchy right now?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
I mean, if the math is so starkly in favor of the single operator, why are legacy agencies still charging $30,000 for an ad campaign? Why are people still billing $500 an hour for things an AI can do in 3 seconds?
This is where we run into the massive psychological barrier preventing adaptation. SAG has a term for this phenomenon that is just perfectly articulated. He calls it market hallucination.
Market hallucination. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the metaphor is so sharp, you know?
Yeah, it really is.
We all know what an AI hallucination is. It's when a large language model confidently states a complete falsehood as if it were absolute fact. But SAC is flipping that critique entirely back onto us. How does a market hallucinate?
Well, market hallucination is defined as total, unwavering confidence in a version of the market that has already quietly expired.
Expired, right.
Businesses and individuals are hallucinating by perceiving a level of demand, a level of leverage, and a level of scarcity that the present moment has actually deleted.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like in the wild? Like, how does a business hallucinate?
Oh, it's everywhere, once you know what to look for. I recently saw a legacy B2B public relations firm quote a client $20,000 a month for a comprehensive media monitoring service.
Okay.
Under the hood, they had a team of 5 junior employees, manually scraping news sites, copying and pasting articles, and compiling them into weekly PDF reports.
You're kidding. $20,000 a month for manual copy pasting.
Exactly. And the wildest part is, they weren't trying to run a scam. They genuinely believed their manual labor was the industry standard.
That's just how they've always done it.
Yeah, they were completely blind to the fact that an automated script tied to an LLM could do this continuously, 24/7, with sentiment analysis included, for about $12 a month in compute costs.
$12 compared to $20,000. That is wild.
They were pricing against an economic condition that only existed in their own heads.
It's crazy to think about. Somebody right now is sending out an invoice for work that AI has made nearly free to produce, and they are fully expecting the client to just accept yesterday's rate.
Yeah.
But why is the delusion so sticky? If the market is moving, why don't they just adjust?
Because it's an emotional trap. For a long time, the scarcity they provided was very real. It took years of grinding effort and specialized infrastructure to produce that media report.
Right. It used to be hard.
The high price was justified. And so the individual's ego and identity became fundamentally attached to the number on the invoice. They start thinking, I am a valuable professional because my work is this difficult to execute.
Oh, I see it. So when someone points out that their business model is sluggish or their rates are absurdly outdated because of a new tool, they don't hear a critique of their workflow. They process it as a direct attack on their personal worth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, SAC emphasizes a vital distinction that everyone navigating this shift needs to internalize. Your skill is not on trial. Your pricing is.
Your skill is not on trial. Your pricing is. Man, that is incredibly potent.
It is the inability to separate those two things that keeps people stuck. Greed, nostalgia, and, frankly, sunk cost fallacy are causing individuals and massive institutions alike to try and preserve a profit margin that was born from an artificial scarcity that no longer exists.
They're defending a ghost.
Exactly. They spent a decade getting an MBA to learn how to manage legacy structures, and they refuse to accept that the knowledge is depreciating. But, as SAC brutally points out, the market does not negotiate with nostalgia.
No, it really doesn't. The market doesn't care how hard things used to be for you. It doesn't care about the dues you paid learning a legacy system that a prompt can now bypass.
Right.
The leverage that used to require millions of dollars in capital is literally sitting on your desk right now. The toll booth is empty, the gates are rusted open, but people are still standing there holding out their hands, demanding the toll because they don't know what else to do.
Which naturally leads to the ultimate question.
Right.
With the gatekeepers bypassed, the scarcity dead, and this mass hallucination slowly being exposed by the market, What do we actually build in its place? If we aren't joining the massive institution, what is the structure of the future?
And this brings us to Sachs' final concept, the digital cottage economy. And the really important thing to note here is that he frames this not as some wild new frontier, but as a return.
That word return is absolutely essential to understanding the shift. Before the Industrial Revolution forced everyone to pack up their lives and plug into someone else's massive factory machine, people built from where they stood.
Like craftsmen.
Yeah, the blacksmith, the artisan, the tailor, the independent merchant. They owned their craft, they owned their tools, they owned their output, and they worked on a localized human scale.
But the factory came along and sold everyone the idea that you had to surrender your autonomy and join the institution to matter, because the factory had the distribution.
Right, and we were conditioned so deeply by that industrial model over the last 100 years that we stopped seeing it as an economic choice. We saw it as reality.
It became that invisible building we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Exactly. But the digital cottage economy is a return to that exact same human-scale ownership from the pre-industrial era. But now it is bolted onto global reach and zero marginal cost.
But let me ask you this. Isn't this just a rebranding of the gig economy? We've had freelancers and Uber drivers for a decade. How is a digital cottage any different from just doing gig work from your laptop?
That is the most common misconception, and it's a vital difference.
Yeah.
The gig economy is still the factory model in disguise.
Really? How so?
An Uber driver or a gig worker on a freelance platform does not own their distribution. They are still plugging into someone else's machine, someone else's algorithm, and paying a massive toll for the privilege. They can be deactivated tomorrow.
They don't own the toll booth. They're just renting a temporary pass.
Exactly. The digital cottage economy is about owning your own machine. It's the augmented operator using AI and the cloud to build their own distribution, their own product stack, and their own direct relationship with the customer.
Wow.
You build from where you stand, you own what you make, and you reach the entire planet. No brick and mortar, no corporate hierarchy, no logistics holding you back. Just you, your tools, and the market.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? I want you to pay close attention to your own internal reaction to this deep dive.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
As we've gone through this math, if something inside you has been bristling, if you found yourself feeling defensive about your industry, the rates you charge, or the necessity of your company's massive overhead, I strongly advise you to sit with that feeling.
It's an important signal.
It really is. The discomfort might be the most honest signal you're going to get. Are you defending a dead model out of nostalgia and ego? Or are you ready to adapt and start building your own digital cottage?
It requires a profound moment of self-reflection. Sachs outlines the ultimate strategy for navigating this era, and it's surprisingly peaceful.
Peaceful. How?
You do not fight the old legacy structures. You don't grab a pitchfork and storm the gates of the corporate toll booth. Fighting the old structure still validates its existence. Instead, you opt out. You build a parallel doorway that nobody can charge you to walk through. You build something better, leaner, and faster. And then you simply watch the old gates slowly rust into irrelevance because the new math is entirely on your side.
You are allowed to be proud of the work you've done. You are not allowed to build the past.
Exactly. Those who hear this message as a personal attack will stay stuck, furiously defending a hallucinated market that the present no longer recognizes.
Yeah.
But those who hear this as actionable information, they will adapt, they will win quietly, and 20 years from now, they will wonder why the shift ever felt so threatening in the first place.
Let's recap this journey we've been on, because we have covered some serious ground today. We started by dismantling the assumption of the building, looking at the artificial scarcity of the toll booth model, that mandatory tax of the industrial age.
Yep, the physical friction.
Right. We broke down the math of how the cloud killed the geography limit, making zero marginal cost software possible. Then we explored how AI walked in and removed the labor limit,
allowing a single augmented operator to replace an entire legacy department.
Exactly. We navigated past the massive ego trap of market hallucination, where businesses try to charge yesterday's prices for today's automated realities. And finally, we arrived at the true ownership of the digital cottage economy.
It is a complete inversion of how value is created, distributed, and rewarded in our society.
It really is. And to you, the listener, The absolute biggest takeaway here is about where the leverage lives today. The immense power, the global reach, the creative capability that used to require a massive corporate entity, millions in venture capital, and an army of employees, it is sitting right in front of you,
Right on your desk.
on your laptop, right now. You do
Yeah.
not need a building, and more importantly, you no longer need permission.
Which leaves us with a fascinating and perhaps slightly unsettling thought to mull over as we close out.
Oh, lay it on us.
If a single augmented operator working from their kitchen table can now rapidly replace the output, the quality, and the global reach of an entire legacy institution,
Yeah.
what actually happens to the legal and social concept of the corporation in 20 years? If the math holds, will the standard Fortune 500 company of the future just be an LLC of one?
A Fortune 500 company consisting of a single human being and an AI stack. That is a wild, wild thought to leave off on. But given the mechanics we've unpacked today, it's not just possible, it might be inevitable. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go out there, look past the market hallucinations, and build a doorway that no gatekeeper can ever touch. And remember, the next time someone tells you that you need a building to build a real business, you know exactly what to tell them. See you next time.